there's a lot of things a game can do to be considered enjoyable or even great. High among that list for me is at least one memorable standout level that I want to replay over and over again immediately after I'm done with it, whether it's a puzzle, a combat sequence, a boss fight, or even a mini game. So let's take a look at a game that has such a standout level, and what exactly makes it stand out. Marvel's Spider-Man has a lot of things going for it. I enjoy the city's liveliness, interacting with the citizens, and the story, but it's the swinging and the combat where the game really shines. Specifically, the way it marries the two. The sense of momentum while swinging feels great on its own, and so does the fluidity and beat-em-up style of the combat. But the ability to rush into combat and maintain the sense of speed from when I was swinging is what made the game memorable for me. The ability to keep enemies in the air, web rush into them, incapacitate them quickly with gadgets, do flashy finishers before swinging out at full speed feels great. It's certainly not the first Spider-Man game to do it, but it is in my opinion the best. And there's one level in particular that combines the traversal and combat system brilliantly.
Consolidated shipping. Jeff, I'm here.
What do you see? Find the rest.
Okay, so long story short, you're after this gang called the Demons, and they're attacking this construction site controlled by Kingpin's company. Right off the bat, there's 3 ways to go about this opening area. You can stealth your way through and web them all up, or you can get into a standard combat encounter, or you can zip right through the level without interacting with them at all. This isn't that impressive or original from a game design perspective, I guess, but I always appreciate being able to complete stealth sections by sidestepping confrontation entirely. No matter what you choose to do, you're led into a combat sequence in a closed-off area, pretty much like any other combat sequence in the game. This is where Fisk tasks you with protecting 6 workers scattered around the building, and this is where the level begins to shine. This stage of the mission allows you to tackle these encounters in any order and use the traversal mechanics to move between them freely. The fights themselves are in stages ranging from completely out in the open to semi-closed off rooms, giving you plenty of opportunities to kick enemies off edges or web them to walls. The fight locations are in different places vertically in addition to horizontally, so you have an opportunity to mix and match swinging, zipping, and wall running together. There's a decent number of environmental interactions and plenty of throwable objects. The enemies you fight have a decent amount of variety, with 3 enemy types making up the bulk of the encounter and a 4th brute enemy type being introduced via cinematic in one of the encounters. There's no time limit, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, but I'll focus on the positive of it for now. It enables you to be a little more creative with the combat encounters, and do them in whichever order is most fun for you instead of trying to find the most efficient way. After this combat stage, you head to the roof of the building and engage in a QTE sequence, or just a cutscene if you disabled QTEs. I'm not a fan of QuickTime events in this game or any other game, but there's enough engaging gameplay in the level overall for me to be okay with it, and the game offers the option to just make them cutscenes anyway. You're then thrown into a helicopter chase, meaning that now, instead of mostly using web zips and short swings to jump between encounters, you're now using full-scale citywide web swinging, which also feels great. The chase also leaves lasting damage to the city. The signs the helicopter destroys actually stay wrecked later in the game. This makes it feel more like an actual event with lasting impact. The chase ends with a free-running sequence followed by a not quite QTE. The free-running segment seems to pretty much be a way for Insomniac to show off their parkour animations, and personally I think that's fair enough. The parkour animations are in fact impressively smooth. And then, as I said before, this helicopter encounter isn't quite a QTE. It's a bit more like something Uncharted or the new God of War do. There is still some player agency and control present. It's like a restricted control gameplay segment. I don't know if there's an actual word for it. What follows, though, is purely a QTE, but it has some fun ideas like treating the triggers like web shooters and sufficient spectacle to justify it. And then, after a short cinematic, the level's over. My favorite segment of the level by far is the large arena with the 6 combat encounters. I've replayed this level a few times, trying to get the encounters in different orders, using more environmental tools, mixing and matching gadgets, trying to move around the environment with perfect efficiency. The beginning is also good in that it allows you to take the encounter on however you want. And the ending makes for good spectacle style chase, followed by a good superhero moment. All of these different things are combined seamlessly with a fast pace and sizable chunks of pure gameplay between the scripted events, whether it's combat or swinging. Now, as fun and impressive as this is, the level isn't perfect. I have one big problem with the level itself, one to do with the marketing of the game, and one with the game as a whole. The marketing problem is that this level was, at least as far as I'm aware, the first bit of actual gameplay shown. I personally didn't see that footage, so this level was an awesome surprise for me, but it is a bit annoying that this could have been a surprise for everyone but wasn't. But that doesn't really diminish the quality of the level itself. What does, however, is the lack of any kind of timer in the middle combat section. Like I said earlier, it's a double-edged sword to have no timer in this section, and there are positives to omitting one. But it does take away some tension from needing to rescue these workers from the gang. I sat here for 2 minutes as a test and didn't get a mission failed, even though the sounds of gunfire were playing the entire time, and this poor guy kept getting kicked in the stomach right in front of me. It's especially odd considering the game isn't averse to timers as a whole, since it has them in the bomb disposal crimes. I think the best solution would be to not have a hard timer that counts down the whole time and instead take a slightly different approach. Maybe you have to at least keep moving to not get a mission failed. Or you have to actively be in a fight within 30 seconds of finishing the last one. I think they were smart to not include a straight up timer, but something to still maintain a sense of tension would be welcome. The final problem is with the game as a whole, not the level. All this great stuff I've been saying about the level giving you a large playground of combat encounters so you can combine traversal with combat, yeah, this is kind of the only time the game does this. That's not to say the level design of the rest of the game is bad, it just never approaches this level of tying together all of its strong mechanics in addition to combining horizontal and vertical movement within the level area. There's one other location within the campaign where the groundwork seems to be present, and that's the prison. There is a section where you're in this wide open zone in the prison, and a few different officers and guards need your help, but instead of making it so you could traverse between the fights in any order, they're marked as objectives at different times and you're forced to do them in a certain order, making them less open than they could have been. And another big issue with this area is that the prison just isn't as interesting from a vertical perspective as a construction site. One of the objectives is slightly raised above the rest, but most of it is completely ground level. There's some outdoor prisoner bases that are wide open and allow for some limited vertical movement, but the enemies here always zero in on you specifically, so it's more like one long combat encounter instead of a few broken up by traversal. Most of the other combat encounters take place in just a single room. Sometimes it's a big room like in Grand Central Station, but again, this is kind of like the prisoner base problem, where every enemy is constantly hunting you, so you almost don't need to move from the beginning spot. Now most of these other combat encounters still have lots of throwables and the ability to zip away onto a wall or ceiling when feeling overwhelmed, and the environmental interactions still set it apart from just another third-person beat-em-up and shows that there is a level of care in the level design and game mechanics as a whole. Like I said, the rest of the game is not badly designed at all, but in the Fisk construction site level, every single good mechanic the game has is utilized perfectly, except for being able to point finger guns at bystanders. Every separate section is great at breaking up the pace and keeping you engaged the whole time, and there's enough player freedom and choice to make me want to replay it countless times. Level design like this may not happen again in the game, but when it happens here, it's great. And all of that is what makes it the standout level of this game.
Spider-Man? That's really him.
Nice to see you.
Spidey! Way to go, buddy!
Isn't the city great?
Don't hurt me!
You're the best.
Hi.
Lights back. Move left.
Leave to my grandma!
Check it out.
Please don't touch the suit.